Hey.
Oop.
Oh, that's okay. And everybody freezes, and whoever moves first is out. We should do that at the conference. That'd be pretty funny.
Sorry about that.
It's
Um,
okay.
I am. I got home today, and my desktop, which I was so excited to get home to, because I've been traveling for a month with my
Yes.
laptop.
Yeah.
My desktop is like slow as molasses.
Mm,
So it wasn't, I knew I wasn't going to be able to pull up our music and things like that. So I'm running two computers at the present moment.
I
And
appreciate you.
I think I'm going to take it out now that I've done the music. And
Okay.
there we go. So that, apologies for the tech.
Mhm. There's the voice, yes, the voice and the volume that I know, yes. It's okay, and we pivot, and that's what we talk about every week, right? That's the reality of life, and, really why we need help, why we need to know how to do it because it's not always the same, so
Right?
I
Isn't
appreciate you
that
for
the
showing up
truth?
authentic. Yeah.
Should we do our introduction and then check in with each other, my friend?
Yeah. Let's do
All right,
it.
let's do
Let's
it.
do it. Hey, y'all, I am Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial entrepreneur and Amazon bestselling publisher, author, and all natural product manufacturer. I'm a champion for your natural self care, intentional business care, and overall sustainable wellness.
Hi, y'all. I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, and Amazon bestselling author and publisher, and a dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Yes, together we are a podcast rooted in the eight dimensions of wellness and the co founders of the Women Connected in Wisdom community.
And we like to get together every week for intentional conversations about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness. How do we do this? And we love to bring on expert guests to help us with answering these questions because
Yes.
we don't even pretend to know it all.
I don't wanna know it all. I already get headaches and not usually actually, but when I get headaches, I don't want them, right? And, I'm so grateful that I'm not in control of everything. So, mm-mm, I don't
Right?
even want it.
So, how are you?
I am grateful. I'm grateful,
Good.
learning a lot and been studying, working through changing logistics. And
Mhm.
so I've been really good and thankful for where I'm at. And I feel like we're all in this period of time when a lot of stuff is shifting. It's not just a
Right.
transition in one thing, it's like multiple big things, you know?
Right.
What
So
about you?
interesting that you said that
Yeah.
because over on Interplay's website today, they were doing a Wednesday I could talk about, right? And so the
Mm,
I could talk about I put was I could talk about transitions
yeah.
and, acknowledging both the gratitude and the grief
Mhm.
because almost everybody I know is in a major transition right now. And yeah, so I just flew home from Colorado. For our
Welcome
listeners that
home.
have been listening, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to sleep in my own bed tonight. Already missing my mom, but
Yeah.
I need to come home, see my dog. Monty was so excited.
I'm
He
sure.
he couldn't even believe it. And he was just, I think he thought I was never coming home. So
Mm,
grateful to be home. And also, it's bittersweet.
yeah.
So, this is a big journey and this has been a big week. And yeah, so just still doing the steps and the things that we need to do as we celebrate my dad's life and, deal with all the details because, man, there are details in this country when somebody passes away. So
Yeah.
it is, as you know, like, I mean, they're just, and you don't know till you know.
Right. Oh my goodness, and I found out how much I didn't know, you know?
Right?
And my goal with insurance, so is not to talk about it directly, to make sure that I'm having the fuller conversation of all the details so that I
Right.
know what's going on, whether it's personally or professionally. But that's why I'm excited about being in the industry and really helping people at that time, because that's when I found out how much I didn't know, how much my mind slid. I'm a very organized person, right? That's
Mhm.
definitely, I think,
Mhm.
like top three characteristics everybody that knows me will
Mhm.
probably put on there. I
I would
was all
agree.
over the place. I was like writing sideways and like not finishing. It wasn't making
Grief
sense.
will do that to you.
And that makes sense,
Yeah.
and it was interesting for me because it was the first time when my mom passed away that somebody close, really close to me had passed
Mhm.
away.
Mhm.
Me not growing up around my family at all, there wasn't the experience of aunts or cousins or
Mhm.
all these pets and different things that kind of, um, just the way life works prepares you for that.
Prepares you. Yeah.
So me, I was
Yeah.
like, this is what people are doing. Oh, no wonder GoFundMe's and all this stuff and
Right.
people aren't okay at work if they're constantly doing this with
Right.
family members all the time. So I'm grateful for you and so proud of how graceful you've been
Uh,
walking through this season.
yeah, thank you. Yeah. I don't know that my sister would completely say graceful, but that's the thing also
I hear
about
you.
grief and loss. Like family patterns come up and
Yeah,
family grooves and family dynamics. And I think overall we've been doing really great.
good.
And it's a challenging season, because and you know this because I knew you during this period. We were just getting to know each other when your mom passed. But
Mhm.
life goes on. Like you've got this big thing happening and
Yeah,
you've got all these details and all these things that need to be addressed. And at the same time, the world is just doing its thing
yes,
and
it is.
expecting you to participate. Like it's just
Highly functioning, yes.
right. And, yeah, so those transitions, I think, and I'm grateful. I have such a huge support network, you included, that I'm just so grateful. And, yeah, it's good to be home and, for at least a couple of weeks before we head off to celebrate him in Texas. And, yeah,
I
so
hear you.
thanks for
Yeah,
asking.
of course. And we're
Yeah.
we're talking about creative, higher, energetic resonance today, right?
I have a story when we get our guest up here about
Yeah.
how he even got home today that is so
Mm,
freaking amazing. I
mm.
just can't wait to tell y'all, but I'll hold it.
Okay. Oh,
So I'm excited to talk about it today.
okay. So, how do you feel about jumping into the definition so we can start
I
to have that deeper
am. Are you
conversation?
kidding? Yes,
Let's do
I
it.
want to get our guest up here sooner than later. Let's do it. Okay. So today, y'all, we're talking about spiritual wellness. Spiritual wellness allows us to be in tune with our spiritual selves. This realm of wellness lets us find meaning in life events and define our individual purpose. It can be defined through various factors, including religious faith, values, ethics, and morals. Regardless of whether you believe in a particular religious faith, there is always something to be learned about how you see yourself in the world.
Mhm. For me, what stands out this time is the meaning and the purpose.
Mm,
Like you were saying, a lot of people are going through transitions, frustrating situations. And I'm thinking about some situations I'm coming out of and the options that I had in ways that I could have reacted.
right?
And I've really tried to not react. I prefer to respond in the process and all the tools and then things we talk about on the podcast, right? Um, but the meaning for me is what's helped me stay in this higher energetic resonance that we're talking about today. Because even though I look at the whole situation, I can see the silver lining. I can see the usefulness of the difficulties and the frustrations. And then the spiritual part. A lot of us want to know what to do in uncertain situations. And we've been talking a lot with the ladies recently in our community about how gifted we are, right? And then how do you prioritize it? What do I do next? I don't know how to organize my time based on what I have on the table. And I love talking about spiritual wellness for these things, for our perspective and the purpose of our lives.
Mm, yeah.
What stands out for you?
Well, I've been really sitting with this definition for a while, going through this process with my dad through his
Yeah.
last couple of weeks with him and really having big conversations with him, as he was letting go um and so it's really present for me. It's present for me. I love signs. I'm a meaning maker. So, I was when my dad was dying, I was talking to him about signs to send me signs from the other side. I was like, Dad, it can be a butterfly, it can be a heart. Don't let it be a snake because he loves snakes. He was a science teacher because if it's a snake, you may not get the reaction you want.
Right.
But it was wild because even like in his last day, it was the day he was dying or the day before.
Mm,
I made my tea, which is part of my morning ritual, right? It's part of my practice,
yeah.
and I put it in a to-go cup because I was going up to the veterans home,
Mm,
and a heart came up in the steam
mm,
on the cup, right? And it
oh,
wasn't like it just made the shape of a heart. And I was like, oh, I see you, Daddy. Because
mm,
at this point, he was non communicative in the last
mm,
couple of days, except for
mm,
squeezing my hand.
mhm,
And so I was like, okay, it's going to be hearts. Thank you. And so then, of course, I saw hearts everywhere I went, and
mm,
including this was the wildest one to me was we were at a Mediterranean restaurant getting a bite to eat,
mm,
and we ordered falafels, and they bring out falafels in heart shapes. I have
mm.
never seen a falafel mold. I was like, "What?" And you know,
Yeah.
my daddy loved food, and he
Mhm.
loved it. So I think about that, right? I think about the different ways that I mean that's helped me be well, whether it's true or not, right?
Right.
It just helped me in those moments.
I
So
understand.
yeah.
Yeah. I completely understand.
All right. All right, let's give our guests let's read their bio and bring them up
Okay.
because I
Okay,
am
y'all.
really stoked to have this conversation.
Me too. So today our expert guest is Carol Mae Whittick. She is a creative, excuse me, she's a creativity and spiritual life coach and podcaster. She supports visionaries and conscious creators, utilizing their inner power to boldly express their authentic purpose. In addition to coaching, Carol shares wisdom and insights with the broader audience as a dedicated podcaster. She is the creator of Higher Energetic Resonance, also known as Her podcast. Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening is her platform for thought provoking interviews with leading experts in the fields of spirituality and creativity. On the solo episodes of Her Inspirations, she examines key topics and offers coaching to those seeking a deeper knowing of themselves and the world. Help us welcome to the stage Carol Mae Whittick. Hi,
Woo!
Carol.
Hi,
Hi,
Carol.
ladies. Hello.
Welcome to the
I'm
show.
excited. Yeah, excited to see you. I'm just wondering if I'm like sitting in the right place.
There you go.
But yeah, let me get like I'm kind of like balancing on everything
Go
as
back the
well.
other way. Go back
I
the
have
other
to
way. A
this
little
way,
center. No, the opposite way. Yep.
this way.
And a little bit more.
There you
Yep.
go.
Boom. You're centered. We
Oh,
can see
okay,
both
yeah,
earrings. Yes.
that's cool. All right, okay.
Got
So
you.
got me there as well. I'm in the back bedroom, so that's why it kind of looks really dark and cozy, but it's really cozy here. So I hope.
Mm.
Does that look all right? I'm trying to get in the middle. I don't know why I can't do this. I think you've got me, right?
Yep.
We
There
do
you're
have you.
centered.
We do,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
sound great. So,
Brilliant.
Carol, remind our listeners where you're coming in from.
So I'm in the UK at the moment. So it's what 13 minutes past 10 in the evening as well. So yeah, the magic of technology has brought us together.
Right. Thank
Thank you so
you.
Mhm.
much for making time for us.
That's
Since the
okay.
last time we had our conversation it's been a while. It's been a couple of months since we did our coffee and
Mm,
chat. I
mhm.
actually visited the UK. I was only there for like 24 hours, or I would have looked you up to come say hi. But I was over visiting my daughter who's studying abroad in the Netherlands, and I got a Ryan airfare to pop over to see my dear friend Ade Enifuwashi, who lives in
Mm.
the UK. And he took me to Castle Park and in Leicester. I'm going to say it wrong.
Leicester.
Leicester, thank you. See, I knew I was saying it's when you look at it spelling, Shannon, it looks like Leicester, but it's
Yeah.
Leicester. And I always
Leicester.
get it, I always get it mixed with one. So he took me to Castle Park in Leicester, Carol, and I have never seen that many swans and
Oh.
such a beautiful, beautiful, like, ugh. So thank you for being here.
Mm.
And I
That's
know
okay.
it's late. Yeah.
That's all right. I'm still there. I'm still with you, so don't worry. If you don't mind, actually, I wanted to echo on with the conversation that you were having
Yeah.
about grief and everything like that, because it
Mhm.
just kind of resonated with me what you were saying. And as someone who my mum passed in 2016, and so I understand the the mystery and the kind of shakiness of everything around you as you're trying to navigate that shifting of your own reality while everyone just kind of gets on with their day.
Right.
But I was seeing so much as well, and death had for one reason or another always been part of my life. So I lost my father very early when I was 4. So that was one of my first core memories. So death has always been part of it, and friends have always passed it. Almost it became very recurring as well. So I kind of came to question death or have something around it. But when I knew that my mom was moving on, that it was how trying to prepare yourself, trying to preempt how you're going to feel at that moment, and there's nothing that you can do for it. And when it came to signs as well, I'd always over my lifetime had a sign with my dad of butterflies, and usually like the white cabbage butterflies. But then I was making that decision when my mum passed, what was her sign going to be? And a couple of weeks after her funeral, I had booked a holiday to Croatia prior anyway. So we went there, and there was this butterfly, like very colorful butterfly, that just came and sat and just would not move, just wouldn't move for ages. And I'm like, okay, so you're going to be butterflies as well. And but what happened over the subsequent week, that butterflies would just turn up everywhere. I didn't know there were so many butterfly earrings, butterfly t-shirts, butterfly tattoos, butterflies on bags. It was just like relentless. Anytime I'd have a moment where I'd feel myself kind of like going into a little bit of a dip, something would turn up, to the point where I was like, okay, I get the message, I see it now. Because sometimes
It's
after a while
everywhere, right?
it's a lot. I'd be in a car and I'd see someone would have like a butterfly ornament on the outside of their house, in their garden, or just all over the place. I was in a train crash and someone walked past me with butterflies all over their suitcase. It was like everywhere. So if ever there was like confirmation that there was spirit, like the veil was very, like, the veil is very thin, the veil was very thin. And even I remember as well, because my mum lived in Derby at the time, that when I came back to, which is north of England, very close to Leicester actually, and when I came back to London, how everything was very turned up in terms of the contrast. It was summer, it was August. And I just remember, well, my mum loved roses and gardens, that everything just looked like someone had gone and like amped up the contrast. So everything seemed very vivid. I was back in London and I was trying to like, okay, what am I going to do with this now? I'm like technically an orphan. So you start processing all of these things. And even when your parents aren't well enough to look after you and you're an adult and you don't ask them to, there's like this energetic shield, of this parental shield that's there, that when they transition isn't, and you feel quite exposed, and you then have to kind of navigate how you're going to be in the world without the energy of your parents around. And then it of course exposed what was good and what was bad about my relationship with my brother, and that was another story altogether. But it's interesting what happens when a parent passes, and it really, for me, affirmed what it is about spirit, and how close spirit is, and what spirituality means to me, and what purpose meant to me as well. It's like, what are you really going to do with your life? Yeah.
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 Ooh, yeah, it brings it really clear.
Mm,
It's like clarity. I had the privilege to be there with my dad because I can work
mm,
from anywhere, and
mm,
I got to be there holding his hand for the
mm,
last 2 weeks, right?
mm,
And pretty much witnessing his life review, because and that was a powerful, powerful thing.
mhm.
When you look at what he was wrestling with, or what he was happy about, or what he was, it really makes you think, okay, in this present moment, how do I want my life to be?
Right.
Like, how do I want my health to be? How do I want
Mm,
this to be? How do I, that yeah, it's powerful when we think about it from what can we do in this moment.
mm,
Um, yeah. This is my friend Ade, because I said Lester, so of course he's on air. I love it. The
Hey,
gift of
Ade.
death, it shines a brighter light in life. It really
Yeah, it
does,
does.
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
It really does, and it's powerful. It's a powerful time. So
Yeah.
Ade and Carol, I want y'all to know each other, just so you know. Because Ade, when I first met Carol, I was like, "Oh, you got to meet my friend Ade. He's in the UK too. I know it's a big place, but we've got to connect you too, because your work in the world is very, very closely aligned in your
Mm.
spirits. So
Mhm.
there we go. I want to tell y'all a quick story before we get into your work, Carol, because I think this aligns with your work. When I
Mm.
look at what you do in your creative, higher energetic resonance and creating the world you want and things like that. So, y'all, I fly standby. I have a dear family member that has given me privileges, but it's
Mm.
always a risk when you fly standby. You don't know if you're going to get a seat or not. My flight was at 6:35 a.m. this morning, and when I went to bed last night, it said that there were 18 seats available. When I got up at 3:40 a.m. this morning, it said it was oversold by 15.
Wow.
Oh,
And my mom said, "Oh, so you're not going to the airport?" I said, "No, I'm going to the airport." I'm like, I gotta go home today. And and this was the flight I needed because of our podcast, because of everything like that. I'm like, no, it's just me. I'm gonna go. So the whole time I'm envisioning myself getting on the plane. I'm envisioning getting home and my dog, loving me up. And by the time I got to the airport, it was oversold by 17. It said negative 17. And
mm,
I'm flying standby. So and there were three other people that had a standby in me. So, like, technically, I'm like number 20, right? And I'm like, who's a long shot? And I thought, nope, you're getting on this plane, right? So I went, got filled up my water bottle like I was getting on the plane.
Good job.
I did everything. Like, I go up, give a big smile to the attendant like I usually do, and I said, "Hey, I know we're oversold, but I'm on your standby, and I just want to let you know that I'm here." And he said, "Okay, what's your last name?" I told him. And this never happens, y'all, because usually you have to wait until the last person boards, especially when they're oversold. He prints me out a ticket. Says, "Here you go, ma'am." And I was like, "Thank you very much." I got on the plane, had a seat home against all odds, right? Against all, if I would have looked at it from a practical perspective, I should not be sitting at home right now. I would
Mhm.
probably be still at my mom's, because I would have thought, oh, I can't do that.
Right.
So, um, so yeah. Addie says he looks forward to connecting with you. Yeah, he liked that
yeah.
story too. Right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and my dog was so excited, Monty was. Joe will be when he gets home from work, but he's not quite here yet.
Yes. Almost there, Joe. Almost there. And super excited for you, Christine. That's huge. That's
Right?
huge. And I
Right?
love it because and I want to hear what you think, Carol, when we talk about higher energetic resonance and how you're
Mm.
intentional about it.
Mhm.
But for me, spiritual wellness is also about asking for what you want to see for yourself and seeing if it's
Mhm.
aligned. So that's literally what you did. I'm so proud of you for having the confidence and like the positive energy while you did that.
Mm.
Right? Well, I was just remembering we were talking about before the show, like some of our old school teachers, right? Addie says it was Daddy Linden shifting things. He
Mhm.
probably, because we had this whole conversation before he crossed, because he was really sad about not being able to protect us. And like you were
Mm.
talking about, Carol, like, we're grown. We don't live in the same state. He hasn't been protecting us for, like, he has energetically, right?
Mm.
And I
Mm.
said to him, I said, "Dad, I said, you're the one that taught me that we are more than these bodies." And
Mm.
he had been immobilized for the last 18 months because he had a catastrophic fall. And I said, "You're going to be able to protect us more than like this is." And so yeah, I think you're right, Ade. That Dad was like, "You gotta go. You wanna go, you gotta go." So yeah.
Beautiful.
What do you say to that, Carol, when you think about the work that you do and the way that you help people be intentional about how they operate in this space?
Mm. It's firstly just finding out what you really want, which is probably the hardest thing. It depends how much of the world you require to kind of validate you. And that in itself takes a lot to kind of knock out all the noise and distraction and the shoulds. We were talking about shoulds earlier, and really feel into what feels right for you or what you want to do.
Yes.
One of the things that I've always been is kind of like counter to what everything was, because I really leaned into my creativity from a very early age. So like I said, I mentioned to you, so my father passed when I was 4, and because chaos ensued as a result,
Mm,
it was I found sanctuary in going inwards, going into my creativity, and that expressed itself through writing, through music, through songs, through sewing, through anything that I could do to make was where I found sanctuary. And also it was because it was a constant to me. I could always go to that space and kind of play in that space. And then I got fed from there as well. So I'd see things. It'd be like, okay, see, this is what you're going to do now. At the moment, one of the projects I'm doing is finishing writing a book, which is about creating her, which comes from the core of where does her come from, higher energetic resonance come from. And it
yes.
comes from me finding that space where I realized that there was an undeniable link between creativity and spirituality. Like, one is no separate from the other. And because I was curious, mine came from curiosity. I was like, where are all these songs coming from? I'd always listen to the top 40 as I was growing up, and I had to really fight to get to listen to pop music on a Sunday, trust me, because the house that I came from. But because I always initially was told that I thought music came from books. So my piano teacher would tell me to go and buy books from a shop, and I'd buy books from a shop, and she would teach me something and I'd learn something new. But at the same time, I started to create. And it's like, where's all this stuff coming from? Can't see it out there. It's coming from somewhere that's nowhere, that I can create something in silence. And I started to really believe the things that I saw. And the more that I tapped into it and believed it, the more that things would come out. So I'd have ideas for songs. I learned how to ride a bike by having a dream about seeing myself riding a bike. I'd look at competitions and just go, I'm going to win that. The ballsiness of a child, and that kind of not realizing that what you're doing is so different. So that for me was always the knowing that I was always being guided and always being told. And also I kind of felt it was a part of me being guided from the spirit by like a parental figure, like my father figure, because he wasn't present in the world. So I was always very much aware of that. So that's usually where I start to speak to people, is like, there's always a voice that's telling you. There've been many occasions in your life that you've known to go left when everyone's told you right, but you've felt that way. And whether you went there or not, you'll know that you'll see by the results. Either you'll follow the thing that seems crazy and you'll get good results, or you won't follow it and things will go and smash into the wall for a bit. Then you're like, should have gone that way. Either way, whether you take on the advice or the guidance or not, you'll start to really see that already it's there. And it's just recognizing what that feels like and sounds like to you, because it might be a voice, it might be something that you get skin goosebumps, you go cold, you go hot. But recognizing what that is, and then starting to honor that and lean into that. And the times that you don't honor that is when you start to feel separation. For me, I know when I'm going off track is when I feel frustration. Like I get like a real frustration, that inner anger with myself, not really with anyone else, because people are doing and being who they are in the world. But if I'm not following that, I recognize that frustration within myself, and I might kind of blame everyone, but it's never anyone's fault. It's always what I'm not doing. And for my own self, I recognize my behavior. If I start to get a bit snappy, if I start to get a bit sarcastic, and I'm not kind of pleased with the way that I'm showing up, I'm like, I'm not doing this right now. So it's just to like recognize and kind of see what you're doing. How are you behaving? How are you feeling? Are you happy with how you're flowing? Because if you're not, then that's an indication that some things kind of come off. your path. And it takes a while for us to calibrate to that. Again, like, because, there are so many shoulds out there, and we're not all the same. We're not meant to be all the same, but we've kind of bought into these ideas that we fit into boxes. But the more that you can allow what you are being guided to do to guide you, then it takes you into completely different and beautiful places. It might lead you into a little bit of solitude and for a long time, but that solitude, even though it can be uncomfortable, is where you get the opportunity to really assess who you are and feel who you are without the external distraction or the external kind of need to be and do for other people. And the more that you know yourself, then the more that you can really stand and build roots from that point and then go forward. That's been my experience, and that's the experience that I always like to communicate to others, for you to find it in your own way, whatever that feels like.
So important. I love
Yeah.
how you say build roots, because sometimes we are places and we might be
Mhm.
there for right now for this season, but we're not meant
Yeah.
to build roots there.
Yes, yeah. And I
Mhm.
and I can think of many instances of over the years of places that I lived or work that I've done that have been all right for now or
Mhm.
for then, or there's been something that I've needed to learn, a skill, or a level of resilience, so that I can be in a situation of difficulty or challenge and learn to turn up in a good way, as opposed to just lashing out and reacting. It's like
Yes.
I'm being shown, like, when you're in the situation of difficulty, of difficult people, of challenging people, of people that want to pull you down, how are you going to show up? And building that muscle to then, when it's time to go, it's time to go. And whether you need to ease out or whether you just need to slam the door and walk. Like, I've done many of the latter before, where it's just felt like, okay, I need to go, and I need to trust that the way and the support is going to be on the other side of this. But to stay too long and dishonor myself is just going to create too much disharmony and dissonance, around me. And I'm all about resonance, of course. Yeah.
Hmm. You know what stuck out for me, Carol, is when you talked about listening to your body.
Mm.
And you said, and I want you to say a little more about it if you will, but you said, you might feel hot, you might get goosebumps, how do you help your clients to tune into that part of themselves, especially
Mm.
if they're new to it?
We've all had those experiences. And the thing is, because we don't really take notice of them, we want the facts, we want white papers, we want peer reviewed studies, and like all external validation for something being real. But the voice of your soul and yourself is very, very subtle. But I don't necessarily know what it is for you until you can you remember a time when something like this happened, that you didn't you knew it happened, but then you were a bit shy about telling someone else because it kind of sounded crazy? That thing that kind of sounds crazy to other people, to other people, is potentially what you're attuned to. That's what feels right for you. And I can never go, okay, it's going to feel like this. You're going to feel like, you're getting a twitch under the eye. For some people, it can be a twitch under the eye. It can be like just a knowing. It can be a feeling of like suddenly going cold or suddenly going hot, or feeling that gut feeling. It's like, it can be very different things. It can be times when I've met people for the first time and just been like, oh no, before we even start to have the conversation, you just know, there's not going to be much of a relationship here going on further. And what I've learned to do is not vocalize those things, because you usually sound crazy, because everyone go, they're a really nice person. It's like, I'm not saying they're not a nice person, but what we're seeing is not what we're seeing. So to really recognize that, you usually know first up, in the first instance, but then your mind will override it, especially if you're trying to please and validate other people's opinion, especially if you think their opinion is greater than yours, or there's more value for you to go along with what's being gone along with. It's it's it's, it's a really subtle thing, and it's just finding what that feels like for you. And you may miss it for many many times, but going back, you'll always realize that there's going to be something that you overlooked because it was such a slight thing, but we've all got it, and it is like a very gentle, slight, nuanced feeling that we all have. um and it's just, what does it feel like for you? How do you recognize it? And I'll just always get you to go back and think of like odd things that happened when you just knew something. We've all had those occasions. And think of think of something that happened that was kind of out of the usuals, that, oh, I remember when this happened and something turned up and I knew. Everyone's got a story of something where they had a knowing of something, or they had a feeling about something, or they said something, but then they kind of brushed it off as just, no, 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 it's crazy, it can't be. Things like, we've all had those, and it's just kind of tracking those again and making note of them, or even starting to as well notice in the present moment or in your life as well, how do you feel when you see things? Is it you that's telling you that that's true, or are you going along with somebody else? Are they your thoughts? Are there other people's thoughts? And really just dig into and really, question your ideas, question your roots about why you believe that thing is true. And you might come up with the same thing, or you might find out that you feel very differently than what you've been telling yourself. And then there's a whole new you to discover. And then it's building on, okay, how can we build the courage for you to now stand up and be that different person in the world, especially if people are relying on you to play a certain role and your role is slightly different, whether it's, like to come away from a group of people, or to just be more vocal, or to be quieter. It's, as you're shifting, can you find the courage to do that? And like I said, for me, it's always about going back to me just having those internal conversations, like, is this right? Is this okay? And when I see visions of things that are possible, and when I get a knowing of something, or when I, like I said, over the last weekend, just knew that for the next few weeks I needed to just do more, because I was on this roller coaster of ideas and I needed to catch them all. And whatever it meant, if it meant that I needed to sit at the desk for hours and just get it out, that's what I needed to do. But then, it sounds like I'm bemoaning the situation, but I was grateful for the flow of ideas, because it was just setting me up for the next couple of months ahead. And I don't know, I just had a sense that June was going to be June is going to be download month. You need to just sit down and catch those ideas and plan as best as you can, because this is like, I don't know, a gear shift for me. I can feel it for myself. So whether that's to do, I'm not the most versed in astrology and all of those things. A lot of my friends are, but something, I felt a gear change definitely at the beginning of June. I knew that I was going to have to just pull it all out, and it's just been flowing, which is why I kind of sit at the desk and get trapped nerves and stuff. But it's all worth it. It's all worth it. Yeah.
I love that you listened to your intuition and sat down long enough to catch it. Because sometimes we're so busy and so going and doing that we're not hearing those little voices.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm like, who else is going to fuel what I'm offering than me? And I don't want to be in those moments of writer's block or dried up, that kind of thing. Like, a lot of the time, the block is you're just not allowing the flow. There's never no block, and there's always flow, and the flow gets lubricated by you just kind of continuing to write it and get it out. So that I've just got books and journals of notes and post-its and everything, so that I can, as I need to go and pick each thing up, then I've got a load of podcasts coming up. I've got these here and these here, and then I can flesh them out further. But I always enjoy those kind of mind dump moments when the ideas are coming up and I'm researching and trying to bring everything together, because then I know, in a month or so, I'll just slow down and I'll just be picking from the ideas that I have been putting down for now and just fleshing them out and making them, prettier.
Yeah. And I want to go a little bit deeper and be really specific about what you said, right? Because when we're talking about creativity and spirituality, for some people who are like, okay, so the AC came on and you got cold and you're telling me it's a sign, like, that's not what we're talking about, right? But
Mm.
sometimes you will get chill bumps. And if I
Yeah.
am completely clothed with a sweater on and Christine has an amazing idea, I'm taking that as not, oh, the air just came on and I'm making something bigger than it is. It's okay, that's something that resonated with my spirit, something that got me excited. I might
Mm.
not think all of those thoughts, but my body is clearly having a response to it. That's something
Mhm.
I should pay attention to, right?
Yeah.
And even though, like you said, sometimes we might miss it or that there might be those moments and we question it, it takes me back to our work, Christine, and everything that we talk about. And Carol, you said it too, right? The still points, they've got to be built in. You know what I mean?
Mm.
This role to keep you busy. We talk about the American pace. It could be the pace anywhere around the world. If we're working for somebody else, we're on their schedule and their pace, right? If we're
Mhm.
working for ourselves, we're probably on a crazy schedule and a pace. You know, when we're talking about being intentional about that here. But those still points, you know, I've been talking about the processing table. And for me, Christine, that's how I would answer your question of how to tune into yourself. Okay, throughout the day, I might have got cold or got frustrated here or this happened. But when I sit down and I'm doing my Shalo glow and I'm touching my shin, trying to figure out where this bruise came from, I'm paying attention to my body, right? Tapping into what feels good and what doesn't. And that might remind me of earlier when I got cold or the conversation that we had and how I felt about it and what I think or what happened. You know, we talk about
Mm.
noticing instead of judging. Why did I get frustrated? Oh, that was a very disrespectful conversation. That's why. Had it happened
Mm.
this way, we still would have been upset. It would have been obvious that anybody would be upset and feel disrespected, right?
Mhm.
Okay. If they're asking me of this, is that a realistic request? Maybe. You know, a lot of our guests and authors, especially as women who share, we're told that we talk too much, right? So in a situation, you might be told to listen more. That's something that I can receive and make sure that I do as a host, as an interviewer, as a service provider. But if it's shared a certain type of way, what and let's use a specific example. In my last position, I felt that it was a spiritual message because instead of knowing that um, even if I can listen more and make sure that I'm attuned to things as a speaker, as a publisher, that didn't sit right. You know what I mean? So, okay, I felt like God was saying, this is not where you should be. Instead,
Mm.
go over here where your
Mm.
voice is listened to, appreciated, and not that I'm doing it for validation. It's in a service and to make sure that we're connected to our resources. But that uncomfortable feeling in my body, you know, paying attention to the different things that came up, and knowing what I know after people have passed away and being intentional about where I put down roots and the values that we talked about from our definition, that's what makes it easier to have those conversations for me. Um, and checking in every day because it does change and we do evolve through seasons. And Carol, like you said, you know, this is starting to be routine. Thing after thing after thing after thing is happening. And we know that happens, you know.
Mm.
So in one season, it might be a download season, and another, it might be different, and allowing yourself to be different and honor those things, I think, is the biggest way we can show up in a healthy way and just continue to notice what's coming up so we can stay aligned.
Mm. 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 Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
what do you ladies think about those things? Do you ever feel like when you try to explain it to people, it sounds like um it's not, does it feel like it's something that you're making up when you try to explain it to them, or do you find that people understand these situations when they present themselves and they just want more information on them?
Mm.
What do you
Should I
see?
go? For I realize that sometimes not every conversation is for every person,
Yeah.
you know, and that took me moments to realize as well, you know, of being tired of being misunderstood, because sometimes if you're continually misunderstood, then you kind of doubt your own message,
Mhm.
you know, and not really take into account that it's not that what you're saying isn't valid, it's not that what you're saying isn't real for you, but you're just speaking to someone who doesn't live their life through that kind of lens or doesn't live their life in that way. So the conversation and the words that you're talking about are not really how they see the world.
Very
So they're
important.
not going to hear me. You know, I know that if I want to have these deeper conversations about spirituality and about creativity, then I need to speak to people who are on their own path of spirituality and creativity, whatever their creative expression is and whatever their spirituality is. They
Yeah.
need to have a faith in something or a wider experience of themselves through something, or whatever that may be. I'm
That
not
makes
going to
sense.
pinpoint in your denomination. It's like, as long as you're not just thinking that you're it and there's nothing else,
Yeah.
then we'll hear each other.
Mhm.
In the same way, when I like to hear about people's passions. It doesn't really matter
Mm.
what you're passionate about, but when someone talks about what they're passionate about, you just feel it, like there's this effervescence that comes from them, because they're kind of fired up about the thing that they're passionate about. But then also, so few people are passionate about life. They're
Mhm.
just kind of really going through the motions and not really taking on board the wonder that it is to be here, and especially when you've had people pass. Like, over the years, I've had many friends pass, like when I was in less than in my teens, in my 20s, 30s, 40s, of friends that I've had to stand and say goodbye to in a physical way. um but I remember them still now. But also, I'm grateful for my life, that I'm still here, and I'm still here to do something. Which is why then, when I hear people complain about the fact that they're getting old, sometimes that's when the frustration can kind of hit me a little bit. I'm like, you're complaining about being alive. Do you realize, that's what you've got? But you can use the wisdom, and that's what I'm always about, is look at what your life has taught you, look at the lessons that you've been through. Have you learned from them? And how are you turning them into wisdom as well? Because I think we've just got such an opportunity, um, when we're gifted with more years, to actually make all of those years and all of those experience prior to where we've been to count.
Mm.
And one of the things that I know I always wanted to create for myself was to live my latter years in a completely different way than was presented to me. Because when I was younger, like when I was in my 20s, the idea of like being 50 was like, oh my God. Like, you're like, you're in your 50, oh dear, that's a shame, like, how terrible, and you're kind of like fighting to get everything done before like 35, because then it's downhill. Well, now, nearing up to 52, I'm like, no, it's like I've not even started yet. I could be on in this life for another 40 or 50 years. So in that respect, then I have to live intentionally, like I want to live in a vibrant way for the next 40 or 50 years of my life.
Mhm.
So what am I going to do about it? I'm going to look and see, oh, I've been alive for 52 years. What has that life taught me? And what have the people who were in front of me, the matriarchal level of my family, what can I learn from what they did and what they didn't do, in terms of how I want to live and be fruitful and creative in that life, and create the vision of the matriarch that I see in my mind about who I can be. And I still have very good teachers in my life. I have two godmothers who are ripening in very different ways, let's put it that way. you know
Mhm.
one of them is, last year she had her 80th birthday party, and she was in a room where, on a Saturday evening, and 300 people came into that room. There were so many people, 300 people, on a Saturday evening. She had a dress code, everyone dressed up, and I'm thinking, to get to 80 and to have 300 people, and people flew from different parts of the world, not just different sides of the UK, and have all those people in a room and celebrate you. I was amazed. I'm like, I don't think I know 300 people that would turn up for me. Truthfully, I really don't, and then there's someone else who is not really seeing where they at and where they are in their life, and they're really turning in on themselves and making it really difficult for them to, as they get older. And it's interesting, because when I was a young girl, I saw both these women as very strong and powerful women. And yet now, as I'm seeing them grow, one is just ripening and getting stronger and becoming almost like, this great tree that's like holding space for herself, her grandchildren, her children, the community. and then someone else who is repelling everyone with the disappointment and the fear and the bitterness that she's holding. And for me, that's a very clear indication of there are ways to go, things that are cute when you're younger, and I say to my friends who are like in their 30s and 20s, the stuff that you can do and get away with that's cute in your 20s and 30s, it doesn't look so nice when you're in your 50s. So, clean it up.
What's cute? What's cute that us 30-year-olds are getting away with?
There's there's kind of like the kind of cute complaining, the cute,
Mm,
moaning about things that, and also this kind of relentless healing circle that people are on, always looking for something to heal, always looking for something
mhm,
to fix, always looking for the flaws. And that's not to say that we don't have things that we need to deal with, in our own way and clear up so that we can be on a different level. But this endless loop of looking for stuff to continually be doing, just
mhm,
you if you're always looking, you'll always find it. If you're always looking for the problem, you always see the problem. But then also start to recognize what you have as well, and dig into that part of yourself deeper and embrace that, and know that all of the things that you're going through now, all the problems that you think you have, in the scheme of things, they're not as big as you think.
mhm,
They're really not. I wish I'd have known this years ago because it would have made, like, in particular, my 40s like way easier, because I think
mm,
I made that decade really hard for myself,
mm.
really
Thank you
hard
for
for
sharing.
myself. Yeah, and but the thing is, like, we never really want to take on board what anyone wants to say. You just want you just you don't though, do you? Um, but then you'll remember that someone said, oh, I remember when Carol said that. Okay, that's what she was talking about.
Yeah.
So it's just, work on yourself and kind of dig into who you believe you are. Work on healing those little things that are niggling, but just don't spend too long there.
I love
It's
it.
yeah,
It's
don't
important.
spend too long there. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Those are
Christine, what
powerful
about
words, Carol. Yeah, I remember, and I in my 20s or early 30s. I remember doing some of that. Like, I
Mm,
remember I had found a modality that it was good. It was a good modality, and man, I dug in, and I was with a
mm,
best friend, and I mean, we were in it for a month or two, and then we looked at each other and we're like, we could do this for the rest of our lives, or we could look at where we're at right now, and we did good work, and let's enjoy it,
right.
right? That looking up. And while you were speaking, I was thinking about, um my days are all, I've been in a liminal time, so my days are all mixed up, but it was
Mm,
probably about a week ago. It was my mom's birthday on June 2nd. And
mm,
my dad had just passed, and it was probably 4 days, and we're like, okay, we want to celebrate mom. Like, she's
mm,
75 years old, and
mm,
we looked around and we found this little farm, called Garden Sweet, that, it was in Fort Collins, Colorado, that you could go and you could pick your own peonies, these gorgeous, beautiful flowers. And so that's what we did. It was like an honoring of my dad, who was a farmer and grew flowers, but it was also like the celebrating of mom's life. And it
right.
was so fascinating to me, because I actually had somebody reach out on social media and go, wait, I'm confused. I thought your dad died. And I said, well, he did. And
Mm,
we get to celebrate my
Janet?
mom, and
Yes.
we get to have smiles on our face, because it was a beautiful day and a beautiful moment. And dad was present with us. Like, I mean, we knew as we were picking the flowers, he was present with us. And
mm,
it's just funny, the limitations. What was coming up as you were talking, I was thinking about the limitations that we put on ourselves, or that other people put on us,
mm,
with the shoulds, and it should look like this, or be this way, or do this. And yeah, I just appreciate your work, Carol. Like, I really appreciate that gift of light, and helping people to see themselves and their purpose, and find themselves.
mm, mm,
It's so
mm,
important.
mm,
So, Christine, I want to give you space to answer too before we go into the wisdom and action, because you're a coach, right? Been helping people for years and you facilitate workshops, conferences. When you come into contact with your clients or just people that you talk to in general, how do you feel like the conversation? I know you asked the question about how to tune into yourself, but
I
what would you
did
say?
because I love that. Well, I mean, I loved Carol's answer,
It
right?
was amazing.
I
Yeah.
always like to hear what other coaches are doing with their clients also,
Yeah.
because I mean, I think so much of it, and you answered it too, Shannon, like
Mhm.
it's giving ourselves the space to listen to ourselves and
Mm.
to listen to spirit. And so much to me, that's what coaching or therapy or workshops are. It's like it doesn't have to come from the outside, but what we do as coaches and facilitators is we create that space so you can discover it.
Mhm.
Because so much we're, especially as women, we're going, 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 going. And that still point, we talk about it, but do we do it? And
Right.
sometimes it's easier to do it in community or with a partner,
Mhm.
is
I'm
what
so
I
glad.
think.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And I'm glad you brought that up because what I was thinking about earlier when Carol was talking is about how many conversations that I've had. And a lot of them are with my godmom, right? I'll call her up. So I need your advice. And I'm running through the story and I'm like, wait, I think I get it. I think this makes sense, you know? And a lot of times we're having conversations that we already know the answer to. Well,
Mm.
how did you know the answer already, you know? So thank you so much for your work, Carol. Let's talk about our wisdom in action, ladies. Yes. So we're talking about spiritual wellness. We'll let you go first, Carol, as our expert guest. What are you
Mm.
doing intentionally for yourself this week for your spiritual wellness?
Letting it come out, like because I knew that I just kind of felt that it was time to like really have a mind dump or a spirit dump or everything, because I'd say towards the end of May there was a couple of weeks where I was like, what's happening, what's going on, and just kind of feeling a bit like I feel like I'm at a pause with nothing to do or nowhere to go, and I'm kind of just like, continuing to do the podcast and writing, but like what's the next bit, what's the level up, because I know that I need to level up on many things. So the wellness is that pause, even though I was frustrating going I should be doing something, was allowing when it feels like almost like the hands are being put on my shoulders, just going like, be still, calm down, just like, I
Mhm.
know you feel impatient, I know you feel lost, that things aren't happening, stop.
Yeah.
Because like in a couple of days time, then it just all comes in and you need to have the energy to go and bring it out. And I felt that shift. So spiritual wellness is just when you feel the need to pause, when you need to take a day off, when all that you feel like doing is just kind of like vegging out and watching things that don't make sense or don't educate you, do so. Like
Hmm.
have that time of like fun times where you're not doing anything, because in that doing you're resting, recuperating, getting ready to gear shift and go. And that's what I realized that was, because like every now and again, if I'm having like too many days of nothing, that I'm like, I should be doing something, like something's not happening, and but I had nothing to do. I had like this space of I don't know what's happening, and then it shifted, and now I saw why I needed to take that moment of doing what I felt was nothing, because
Hmm.
I needed to rest. And then
Absolutely.
when it all came in and I'm like, okay, it's June. June's going to kick off, isn't it? And June just went, okay, get
Yeah.
ready. We're going to be working every day. And it just, so the wellness is when you feel the need to rest and pause and do what you think is nothing. Allow yourself to do that and try it as best as you can, to not chastise yourself for being lazy, because if you're a productive person, it's impossible for you to remain lazy for too long, because then you'll get to the point where I'm like, okay, I need to do something now. And that's
Yeah.
what the wellness has been for me in most recent times. Yeah.
Thank you
Mm,
so much.
Mm.
And I would like to affirm it even further, right? It is absolutely doing something. Nothing is important. I was
Yeah.
working at the gym on campus in my undergrad, worked at the gym for 3 years. And so I learned a lot about working out, right? And when you're building muscle, when you're working out, you also need to rest. We
Mm.
cannot consistently tear things down, consistent muscles down, right? That's doing weights and it's tearing it apart. We can't constantly be running. We have to rest, and it is also part of the longevity and the sustainability. So I
Mm.
hope you guys
Mm.
are encouraged by that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What about you, Christine? You want me to go next?
yeah, go next.
Let's see. Ooh, spiritual wellness. I'm working on hashtag envision what I want. You kept
Hmm.
saying that earlier, right, Carol? Like, what is it that I want? And I completely resonate with you when you're talking about the pause. Like, what am I supposed to be doing right now? I gave myself a lot of grace and space to rest as I'm changing my logistics. And even though I know this and we have all these conversations, when that voice will come up, be like, you should be doing no, it's okay. It's okay. It's like you need to do this too.
Mhm.
And what you're talking about downloading, it reminds me of something I was reading on uh, us not being able to read and write. Right in America, it used to be illegal for us to learn how to read and write. And I was reading something about intelligence levels, and I've realized that it leaves out downloads. It leaves out God telling you
Mm,
things, right? Like you said with the
Mm.
music, it's not just from books. Where do you think the stuff in the books came from? So
Mm.
just
Mm.
because you don't give me this book doesn't mean I'm not gonna know. Like other things are still gonna happen. Um,
Mm.
so yes, envisioning what I want, transitioning into this new company, in between volume 2 and volume 3 of Women Connected, starting up the LinkedIn community for us to do this throughout the week and continue the conversation. There's a lot going on. And as God is doing what he does, I also want to be intentional about asking for what I want and envisioning it for the next season. So I have some vision boards and some specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound stuff to write down. You
those
guys,
smart goals.
yes, yes. What about you, Christine? Spiritual wellness.
Spiritual wellness. I am going to listen
Mm,
and see what's needed because I have some processing to do. I started doing some processing with poetry and the arts. That's one of the modalities I use, Carol, and
Mm.
it's starting to come out. But I've been holding a lot for other people this last month, and
mm,
so I'm home, and so
mm,
I'm going to listen
mhm,
Mm.
for my next steps and what I need to do for healing.
mhm.
So, and rest. I need to rest and listen. I think those are my wisdom and actions this week. I've
I
had a
love it.
lot of action. So,
Rest and listen. Yes.
Carol, tell our listeners how they can find you. How can they
Yes.
connect with you?
The best place is my website because then you can see everything and hub out from there. So it's carolmaewhittick.com, carolmaewhittick.com. And yeah, there's, links to everything and you kind of see the work that I do, the different podcasts, and,
And you
read
have
up
some
about me.
upcoming classes and other things.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've been plotting over the weekend is to be doing some. I want to start doing some monthly masterclasses on
Mhm.
creativity and spirituality. So I'm just kind of formulating what they're going to look like, and then kind of planning the dates and everything. And initially, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start at the end of June. Like, no, you're not. You need to just give yourself a little bit. So I think the first one's going to be about the 10th of July, and then
Nice.
ideally I want to be kind of dropping those out there every month. And the idea of that as well, I'm still kind of toying around with the name, so I don't know what it is, but it's to really invite people to come in and experience what their creativity is like and recognize that you have that. It's the initial thing that I always get from people is, I'm not creative. I'm like, oh yes you are. you
Mm,
know in the same way when I meet, because I used to sing, so like when I'd meet people and go, I can't sing, I'm like, well, if you're speaking to me, you can sing, trust me.
Mhm,
It's the
Right?
same apparatus. And like you're talking
Right.
about muscle, Shannon, it's muscle, it's
yeah,
muscular.
Mhm,
mhm,
And
mhm,
then you get your mind out the way, so you get your mind out the way, train the technique, forget it, sing.
mhm,
That's
mm,
in the same way is how your creativity is as well. Get your
mhm.
mind out the way that's telling you can't do it,
Right.
train the muscle, create. Just
mm.
move the block out the way, which is you comparing yourself to Leonardo da Vinci. It's like, well, maybe that's not your expression, but
Right.
Right?
something will be yours, and you'll find out what it is for you. For some people, creativity is numbers. Like, it doesn't have to be just like a paintbrush or music or architecture. It can be many different things, but getting into that flow of when you can just kind of paint the space around you. And the idea that we always talk about making a mark on the world, making
Mhm,
an impression. If those aren't artist terms, I don't know what is.
mhm.
That's what we're
Right?
about doing. We're being in the world, and that's what we're here to do, is to create. And I think in this age where we're transitioning into working alongside, ideally, with AI and advanced technologies, it's really important for us to know who we are and our own spiritual connection
Mhm.
before
Mhm,
we completely outsource it to the algorithm. Because if you
mhm,
don't use that, and if you don't know what you're capable of, then you'll just you'll stop using that, or just think that you're not
mhm,
capable of writing something and just chat a prompt, put a prompt in and get it out. I'm not against advanced technologies. I'm here using technology, and I play around with those things as well. But it will never take away from what it is for me to sit down in the silence and trying to figure it out and get it out. So I think for us to be able to move into the world that we're moving into, this advanced technological world, and not being diverted and consumed by it and lose our spirituality to the technology, is vitally important to really develop that connection as well, so that you can differentiate between what is you and what is a generated response to
Mhm.
something that you have. I think that's important, so that
Yes.
we don't really, convenience is great, but usually what gives us convenience is something at the expense of something to ourselves. And before,
mm,
maybe it's not been such a big thing, but now, if we completely acquiesce at because of convenience, what are we losing? And that's
Right.
always important for us to remember when we're using these tools, that they are tools for us. They
mhm,
let them take away the menial jobs that we're not here to do, and then let us go into creativity and create alongside if that's necessary. I just really think that at this moment in time, it's really a vital thing for us to do, and especially those of us who remember what the world was like prior to the internet, because it
Mm.
happened. It was all good.
right?
But
Right?
there is a balance between using the technology, which I think is fantastic, because we're able to have this conversation, and
Right.
I'm able to work because
Mhm,
of technology,
mhm.
but also I still want to maintain my humanity in the midst
Mm,
of all of this. Yeah.
Well
mm.
said.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you so much for being our guest
Yeah,
today. Thank you
Thank
for
you for
your work in the
inviting me.
world.
of
This was
course.
a delightful conversation. We will put your website in our show notes so folks can connect with you. And we're just grateful to be connected. Thank you for being
Yeah,
here today.
me too.
Thank you,
I've
Carol.
enjoyed you. Thank you. Thank you,
Enjoyed
ladies.
it as well. Talk soon.
Yeah, such a rich conversation. That was
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah, it
I know
was.
we're over time. So, is there anything you want to shout out before we close this episode?
So usually this is when we would talk about events, talk about different
Yeah.
things, right? What I want to shout out, and I'll do it, and then because it sounds like
Okay.
you have an event or something, we can close
Mhm.
it the way we usually do,
Okay.
is at with encouragement,
Yeah.
right? Because a lot of times women, we say we're crazy,
Yeah.
people tell us we're crazy. We're talking about AI, talking about,
Woo.
right, pausing. This is the
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
We just got what? Credit cards, right? In the 80s, we just got business loans, right? Women are about to do a lot of things for the first time. it might seem different. And if it's different, that's okay because we're going into a lot of uncharted territory, right? That's what waymakers and there's all this stuff we have to move and a lot of things that are going to
Right.
look different. And especially because we're doing it alongside new technology and new opportunities, it might look different. But again, I want to encourage us to get into community, get into yourself, do the things that we need to do to check in with where we are and stay connected. And I look forward to hearing all the beautiful things that come from it.
Right. And
What were you gonna
celebrating
say?
each other. Well, talking
Yeah.
about waymakers and change makers, our
Mhm.
dear friend and colleague Dr. Sheila K. Collins,
Yes.
who is a Women Connecting Wisdom author,
Mhm.
she is
Coming to
launching.
Atlanta.
She is coming to Atlanta at the end of June, but she is also launching her ebook tomorrow. And
Oh,
so pay attention to our socials so you
okay.
can get a copy of The Art of Grieving.
Mhm.
How let me make sure I get the title right because I'm
You got
tired.
this.
How the arts and art making help us grieve and live our best lives.
Mhm.
So right in line with what we were talking about with Carol today, and
Yes.
we'll put it in our show notes. And yeah, just congrats, Sheila, and
Yes, congratulations.
good stuff happening,
Yeah,
and just grateful to
me
be
too.
connected. And yes, I don't know that she has the performance listed yet, but she's going to be
Okay.
in Atlanta doing a performance
Mhm.
um June 25th at the
Okay,
Mask
the
Center.
Tuesday. Mm,
June 25th, the Mask Center. So y'all come see us because we'll have
yeah.
a lot of women connecting wisdom there.
Yeah.
So
Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us for Spiritual Wellness, episode what is this, 159?
I think
Let's
that's right.
see. I do believe it's right. I have it pulled up. Let's look real quick. Yes, 159. So we'll be here live at 5 next week for episode 160. In the meantime, be well, be wise, be whole. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.
See you soon.